And welcome back. We are reading the book A Swim in the Pond in the Rain, written by George Saunders, who is a professor at Syracuse University teaching a course on Russian short stories. We've been reading this book primarily because it's a book about storytelling. And as humans, as marketers, as people that have a brain, what we gravitate towards, the pictures in our minds that we see when we read, are often because of the way stories are told or storytelling. And so far we've learned quite a bit in the first short story that we read, In the Cart by Anton Chekhov. Some of the principles that we've learned, such as every line leading to the next line to grab the attention of your reader so that they can continue to read. The Hollywood effect, where we're saying, hey, if we can summarize a short story just into one of the trailers or the teasers, imagine a voice coming on. Myra Vasilyevna, in the cart, going back home. What next? That kind of thing. So many of the principles last. We learned that Anton Chekhov does not write one-dimensional characters. While one character might be the rich landowner, Hanov, on the other side, he is wasting away his life, he's a drunk. So, which is really how us humans are in the day-to-day. We are not perfect. We have multiple sides. So one of the powerful messages of a short story is often to not just give the reader what the easy answer might be, but have us learn and continue to grow and resonate with our characters. And so, here we are in the second short story in this book, and this one is called The Singers by Ivan Turgenev, or Turgenev. I am not a Russian speaker, and so please excuse my mispronunciations of Russian. I'm Philip Chen, and we are going to dive in. The small village of Kolotovka, which once belonged to a lady nicknamed in the neighborhood Mistress Trouncer because of her vicious and uncontrollable temper. Her real name is not recorded, and now owned by some Petersburg German, lies on the slope of a bare hill cleft from top to bottom by a terrible ravine. Yawning like a chasm, this ravine winds its torn and eroded way across the very middle of the village street, dividing the poor little village in two. Worse than any river, for a river could at least be debridged. A few spindly willows cling precariously to its sandy sides. At the bottom, dry and reddish like copper, lie huge flagstones of shale. A cheerless sight, no doubt about it, and yet the road to Kolotovka is well known to the people in the neighborhood. They go there readily and often. At the very top of the ravine, a few yards from the spot where it begins as a narrow crack in the ground, a small square peasants' college stands solitary, apart from the others. It is thatched and has a chimney. A single window, like a watchful eye, looks towards the ravine and, lighted up from within on winter evenings, can be seen from afar through the dim frosty haze, shining like a guided star to many a peasant who happens to be driving that way. Over the door of the cottage is nailed a little blue board. The cottage is a country pub known as the Cozy Corner. In this pub, drinks are in all probability sold, no cheaper than the fixed price. But it is much better attended than all similar establishments in the neighborhood. And the reason for that is the publican, Nikolai Ivanich. Nikolai Ivanich was once a slender, curly-headed, and rosy-cheeked lad, but now he had grown into an inordinately fat and great-haired man with a bloated face, a pair of sly, genial little eyes, and a fleshy forehead with deep furrows running right across it. He has lived in Kolotovka for over 20 years. Nikolai Ivanitch is a wide-awake, resourceful fellow, as indeed most plebeians are. Without being particularly amiable or talkative, he has a knack of attracting and keeping customers who somehow feel at ease sitting in the front of his counter under the calm and affable, though rather watchful, eye of their phlegmatic host. He has a great deal of common sense, and he is well acquainted with the mode of life of the landowner, the peasant, and the tradesman. In difficult circumstances, he could give good advice, were it not for the fact that as a cautious man and an egoist, he prefers to keep his own counsel and guide his customers, and only those he particularly favors, out of trouble's way by rather obscure and indirect hints, dropped, as it were, in passing. He is an excellent judge of what a true Russian considers to be either interesting or important, of horses and cattle, timbers, brick, crockery, textiles, leather, singing, and dancing. When there are no customers, he can usually be seen sitting like a sack on the ground in front of his cottage, his thin legs tucked up under him, exchanging pleasantries with every passerby. He has seen much in life, outlived more than a dozen of the small landowners who used to drop in for a glass of vodka. He knows everything that happens for 100 miles round, but never breathes a word about it, and does not ever let on that he knows what even the most astute district police officer does, not so much as suspect. All he does is keep mum, chuckle to himself quietly, and busy himself with the glasses. His neighbors respect him. One of them, a certain Shcherenpeko, a civil servant of the rank of a general and one of the most influential landowners in the neighborhood, always bows to him courteously when driving past his little cottage. Nikolai Ivanitch is a man of influence too. He forced a well-known horse thief to return a horse stolen from one of his acquaintances. He made the peasants of a neighboring village listen to reason when they refused to accept a new agent, and so on. However, it would be a mistake to think that he did it all out of love of justice or out of zeal for the welfare of his neighbors. No, he was simply trying to nip in the bud anything that might disturb his peace of mind. Nikolai Ivanitch is married and has children. His wife, a brisk, sharp-nosed, and quick-eyed tradeswoman, has also put on a good deal of weight lately, just like her husband. He defers to her judgment in everything, and she keeps a tight hand on the purse strings. Rowdy drunkards are afraid of her. She dislikes them, for there is little profit and a lot of noise from them. She would rather much deal with the silent and gloomy ones. Nikolai Ivanitch's children are small. The first all died, and those who survived resemble their parents. It makes one feel good to look at their clever little faces of these healthy children. It was an unbearably hot July day when, scarcely able to drag one foot after the other, I walked slowly, accompanied by my dog, up the Kolotovka ravine in the direction of the cozy corner. The sun was blazing away in the sky with a kind of fury. It was scorchingly, piteously hot. The air was saturated with choking dust. The rocks and crows, their feathers gleaming in the sunlight, gazed dolefully at the passers by, their beaks gaping as though begging them for sympathy. The sparrows alone did not seem to mind, and, fluffing up their feathers, went on chirping more furiously than ever as they kept fighting each other along the fences, flying up from the dusty roads in the flocks and hovering in gray clouds over the green hemp fields. I was tortured by thirst. There was no water anywhere near. In Kolotovka, as in many another steppe village, there were no springs or wells, and the peasants drink a sort of liquid filth from the pond. But who would give the name of water to that horrible hogwash? I was thinking of asking Nikolai Ivanitch for a glass of beer or kvass. I must be admitted that at no season of the year does Kolotovka present a cheerful sight, but it arouses a particularly mournful feeling when the blazing July sun glares down with its pitiless rays upon the half-crumbling brown roofs, the deep ravine, the scorched, dust-laden common on which some lean, long-legged chickens are wandering about despondently, the gray aspen-timbered shell of a former mansion, grown over with nettles, weeds, and wormwood, and the pond, black and almost incandescent, covered with goose feathers, with its fringe of half-dried mud, and its lopsided dam near the dam, on the fine, trampled, cinder-like earth, sheep, hardly able to draw their breath, and sneezing from the heat, crowd sorrowfully together, and with dismal patience hang their heads low, as though waiting for the moment when this unbearable sultriness will pass at last. Barely dragging my feet, I drew near at last to Nikolai Ivanitch's cottage, as usual, making the children stare in intense amazement at me, and arousing in the dogs a feeling of indignation expressed by vicious and hoarse barking, which seemed to tear their insides and make them choke and cough. Suddenly, a tall, bare-headed man in a frieze overcoat with a blue belt round the waist appeared in the doorway of the country pub. He looked like a house serf. His thick gray hair rose untidily over his thin, wrinkled face. He was calling somebody with rapid movements of his arms, which were quite obviously swinging out much further than he intended. It was clear that he had already had a drop too many. Come on, he babbled. Come on, Blinker, come on. Good heavens, you're just crawling along. It isn't nice at all, old fellow, not nice at all. They're waiting for you here, and you're crawling along. Come on now. All right, I'm coming, a quavering voice cried, and a short, stout, lame fellow appeared from behind a peasant's cottage on the right. He wore a fairly clean farm laborer's cotton coat with only one sleeve. A high pointed hat pulled straight over his forehead gave his round, pudgy face a cunning, sardonic look. His little eyes darted around, a restrained, forced smile never left his thin lips, and his nose, long and pointed, was thrust forward impudently like a rudder. I'm coming, my dear fellow, he went on, limping in the direction of the pub. Why are you calling me? Anyone waiting for me? Why am I calling you? The man in the frieze overcoat cried reproachfully. What a funny fellow you are, to be sure, Blinker. You're called to a pub and you ask why? There are all sorts of excellent fellows waiting for you. Yashka, the Turk, the wild gentleman, and the contractor from Zizdra. Yashka and the contractor have made a bet. They wagered a quart of beer to see who wins. I mean, who sings the best, see? Yashka's gonna sing? The man nicknamed Blinker cried excitedly. You're not telling a lie, booby. I'm not. Booby replied with dignity. It's you who are talking a lot of nonsense. Of course he's going to sing if he's made a bet, you stupid insect, you twister, you... Oh, come along, you ninny, said Blinker. Come, give me a kiss at least, my dear fellow, Booby babbled, flinging his arms out wide. Get away with you, you great milksop. Blinker replied contemptuously, elbowing him aside, and they both, stooping, went through the low doorway. The conversation I had overheard greatly aroused my curiosity. More than once, rumors had reached me of Yaksha, the Turk, as the best singer in the neighborhood, and all of a sudden I was given the chance to hear him in competition with another master. I redoubled my steps and entered the pub. I don't expect many of my readers have had occasion to look into a country pub, but we sportsmen go everywhere. The arrangement of these country pubs is very simple. They usually consist of a dark passage in a large room divided in two by a partition, behind which no customer is allowed to go. A big oblong opening is cut in this partition above a broad oak table. On this table or counter, vodka is sold. Sealed bottles of different sizes stand side by side on shelves immediately opposite the opening. In the front of the part of the room are benches, 2 or 3 empty barrels, and a corner table put at the disposal of the customers. Village pubs are mostly rather dark, and on their timbered walls you hardly ever see any brightly colored popular prints, without which very few peasant cottages are complete. When I went into the cozy corner, a fairly large company was already assembled there. Behind the counter, as was only to be expected, filling almost the whole width of the opening, stood Nikolai Ivanitch in a gay cotton shirt, with a lazy smile on his chubby cheeks, pouring out 2 glasses of vodka with his pudgy white hand for the 2 friends, Blinker and Booby, who had just come in. His sharp-eyed wife could be seen behind him in the corner near the window. In the middle of the room stood Yaksha, the Turk, a lean, slender man of 23, wearing a long-skirted blue nankeen coat. He looked like a dashing factory hand, and, as so far as I could judge, his health was nothing to boast about. His sunken cheeks, large, restless gray eyes, straight nose within, mobile nostrils, his white, receding forehead with light brown curls thrust back from it, his large but handsome and expressive lips, his whole face revealed an impressionable, passionate nature. He was in a state of great excitement. He blinked, breathed irregularly, his hands trembled as though he were feverish, and, as a matter of fact, he had a fever, that sudden, shaking fever which is so familiar to all who speak or sing in public. Beside him stood a man of about 40, broad shoulders with broad cheekbones, a low forehead, narrow, Tartar eyes, a short, flat nose, a square chin, and black, shiny hair, hard as bristles. The expression of his face, swarthy with a leaden hue, and especially of his pale lips, might almost have been called ferocious, if it had not been so calmly reflective. He hardly stirred and just kept looking around slowly like an ox from under the yoke. He wore a sort of threadbare frock coat with shiny copper buttons. An old black silk handkerchief was wrapped around his massive neck. He was nicknamed the Wild Gentleman. All right. Okay, everybody. We will stop here today. As I've noticed kind of moving forward, we are just given this short story in its full meaning. And so I think one of the things that we will start to do as we read this short story, The Singers, is that we will continue to follow some of the page at a time. In fact, we'll probably read a few different ones together and then start to cover what we are hearing so far. And so we've just passed a few pages of The Singers, and so far what we've done is we've imagined this person I. We actually have no idea who this I is. We've given some background as to the kind of experience that we're walking into. We're finding that this is a pub. We've been introduced to the owner, his wife, a few other of the main characters, and we've also been introduced to what might be a village where singers are known and renowned, and there's just so much here happening so far. And we're really wondering at this point, what is this story about? We've heard about this miraculously kind of pub in the middle at the top of the mountain in this ravine that's on its own. People go very far to get there. The drinks are great. People love the owner. But then we're kind of trying to figure out, what is this, call it, narrator's whole deal? And so I guess Ivan will reveal it to us at some point coming in the future. So take care, y'all. This is Philip, and we'll be back for more pages of this short story. Take care.